Be me, working as a state trooper for many years, just out doing my usual patrol. At the time, I'm patrolling about a 40-mile stretch of the I-40. Some parts can get busy in urban areas, but a lot of it is endless stretches of nothing. Road conditions are trash with insane amounts of potholes. Means I run into a lot of people with fucked up and broken down cars that I end up having to help out. Half of this job is just running plates and checking everything is all good. Only problem is that 12-hour shifts are absolute killers, which, unfortunately for me, is the majority of shifts that I work. I won't lie, my job role can be a little bit unclear at times. There isn't exactly any set criteria, even though that is what most cops would have you believe. Typically, when I'm out on patrol, I will target commercial vehicles mostly. I will pull over company vehicles and long-haul truckers with markings. I do this to check their logbooks and other paperwork to ensure that everything, absolutely everything, is in check. You know, to make sure they're hauling exactly what they say and that no funny business is happening. You would not believe the amount of truckers I pull over with pounds of weed and other drugs. These fuckers think that just because they are company men, that cops won't want to waste their time and that anything will slide. I had one dumb fuck who didn't even make any attempt to hide the cocaine that he was hauling. Most will hide it and have other cargo to make it more inconspicuous. But I open up his truck and it's just sitting there naked in massive piles. Safe to say he went away for a long time. Didn't speak a lick of English, so I don't think he truly understood the severity of what was happening. I do pull over other vehicles though. If I see a lone driver and I haven't seen any other vehicles for miles, then I will tail them for a little while. If they're doing over 20 and I see them start sweating, I will pull them over just to meet my quota, or sometimes literally just to kill the boredom. 9 times out of 10, nothing bad happens, and I will give them some bullshit reason about lights or plates as to why I pulled them over. Or I will say something about them acting weird when they saw me. I'm a bit of an asshole, but years in this job will make you that way. Anyway, this one happened at around 6 a.m. or so. I'd barely gotten on shift and it wasn't exactly the time you'd expect weird things to happen. Anyway, I'm patrolling on a particularly desolate stretch. Haven't seen another soul for around 10 minutes, and like I say, it's 6 in the morning. Then, in the distance, I suddenly start to see this 18-wheeler come into view. It immediately sets off alarm bells in my head and just seems sketchy. For starters, this 18-wheeler has absolutely no markings on it at all. No kind of company info, no company markings, not even a decent paint job. Everything is just blank, and the truck is painted dark. Looks quite fresh too. Clearly, they did not want to be spotted and had been driving for a while. I tailed the vehicle for a while and then ran the plates. I alerted my barracks and let them know the situation, and they ran all the information through for me. They agreed that this shit was very sketchy. Nothing unusual comes up when I'm running the plates. It isn't linked to any kind of company though. It's just a personal vehicle. Okay, yeah, time to pull this guy over. I followed at a distance for another good minute or two. The truck seems to be veering ever so slightly now and then. Like, he physically cannot keep the truck straight. Possible drunk driver. Great. I light it up and signal for him to pull over. He doesn't do so immediately. He keeps going for a minute or two, and I guess he realized that in no world is he leaving me in the dust. He had absolutely no choice in the matter. Once he pulls up, I let him sit for another minute or two. I can see his face from my car in the mirrors, and he looks pretty calm, all things considered, but I knew full well that he could be dangerous, so I take it cautiously. I walk up and greet him, ask him how it's going, just try and build up a friendly rapport before grilling him. From his responses, he does not seem drunk, so I wondered if maybe his truck was a little messed up. I asked to see his ID, and it matched up with the information from when I ran the plates. I asked him to step out of the vehicle slowly for me. Told him it would just be a routine check. Just needed to see his company credentials to verify what he's hauling. He does not correct me and tell me it's a personal use vehicle. That is another red flag. But I let him get a little comfortable and don't let on that I know what I know. He does as I ask and steps out. Doesn't have a weapon on his person. told me he didn't have a weapon in his cab when I asked him. I ask him to walk ahead of me to the trailer, and he does so. I ask him to open it up, but he refuses and tells me that he can't. I ask him what he means. He just tells me again that he cannot open it. I move him to the side and try the trailer, but it is clearly locked up with a padlock and shit. I ask him to get me the key and to open it up for me so I can verify his cargo. He tells me that he won't. By this point, I'm really fucking sick of this guy. It's early, I'm tired. I didn't even have a chance to get a coffee, and I have been incredibly patient with him so far. Most troopers would give him one warning and then have his ass on the ground. I have given him 4 so far, and this was going to be my final one. I tell him it's his last chance, or I would have to detain him for interfering with official police business and an investigation. While I'm doing this, I alert the barracks on my radio and call for backup. Thankfully, they already know the situation due to my earlier brief. They are unfortunately around 15 to 20 minutes out from my location. He says no again, and in that same second he says it, he turns and full-on sprints back towards his cabin. I instantly think, shit, he is going for a weapon. I wasn't feeling trigger happy and was not about to waste hours of my life filling out paperwork because of this bozo. I thankfully managed to tackle him very quickly before he could get back into his cab. I read him his rights, added resisting arrest to his charges, cuffed him, and then sat him in the back with my cruiser. I searched his cab for keys, but there were not any anywhere. None on his person either, which was strange. Luckily for me, I had some bolt cutters in the back of my cruiser, which I always keep there. I got to work and got into that trailer in no time. There was no fucking cargo inside this trailer. That was the first thing that screamed out to me. There were a few metal shelves with some jars of stuff on them, but that was not the concerning part. There were people in this fucking trailer. On either side of the trailer interior, all chained up against the wall. They were just sitting on the floor and just looking straight ahead, like their eyes were fixed into place. They did not notice me at all. I made quite a commotion opening up that trailer, and not one of them so much as looked up in my direction. I tried shouting and waving my hand, but they were just completely docile. But they were definitely still alive. They were definitely breathing. Straight away, I radioed in for medical assistance and made the situation very clear. Potential human trafficking or something along those lines. In the far back of the trailer, I can see something else. I can see what looks like floodlights. They are shining down on what look like cages. I think there are 2 of them in there. There is even a camera set up on a kind of tripod that is facing these cages, like someone was filming some weird budget home movie or some other bullshit. I take a step into the trailer to start approaching, but these people in cages are not docile like the chained up people. They immediately look up and over at me. They look incredibly malnourished. They start screaming and shouting just pure gibberish at me. They start squirming and writhing in the cages until they eventually knock them over. This in turn knocks over the camera on the tripod and smashes one of the floodlights. I don't know how, but in the commotion, the force from them or something else broke one of the cage doors open completely. I can only half see this thing now because of the smashed floodlight. I see it crawl out, and I ready my weapon and give a warning to whoever it is. They immediately start sprinting, and I try to give another warning while backing up and down out of the trailer, but they do not stop for even a second. I did not want to kill anyone, but they were moving so fast. All I could do was aim for center mass like I was trained to do. We are never, and I repeat never, trained to shoot to wound. We only ever use firearms as a last resort, and are trained to use lethal force to defend either ourselves or the lives of innocents. One shot dropped it like a sack of potatoes, but to my relief, they were not dead. They were still screaming and squirming. I took the opportunity to cuff them face down and then apply pressure to the wound as best as I could. All the while, they were trying to attack me and fight me off. It was difficult to say the least, but thankfully, in the fear and the panic, I was a lousy shot, and I did not hit them in any immediately lethal area. I think I had struck them in the pelvis or hip area and shattered a bone, which is why they dropped. I tried to speak to them, but I did not get any words from the person. They were obviously in a state of pure distress and had been drugged or worse. Thankfully, it was only a few minutes until paramedics and backup arrived. It wasn't cop cars though. Guys in SUVs pulled up. They showed me ID, and they just told me they would take it from here. I assume because of the implications of my stop, it might have been part of an ongoing or federal investigation. They thanked me for my help and asked me to haul that asshole out of my car for them as I had locked him in. I asked the trucker what the fuck was going on as I hauled him out, but he just laughed at me. I handed him over, and they told me not to worry about the stop. Said they would handle all of the politics and that I would just have some routine paperwork to fill out at my barracks to explain the shots fired. But they reassured me that I was not in any trouble and did a perfect job. I very obviously did not get a follow-up on that case, and no one spoke to me about it ever again. It was obviously an ongoing high-level case that had to be kept secret for legal and logistical reasons. Still though, it had to be the most horrifying stop I had ever made in my life. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I never really planned to become a cop. After leaving the army, I was just looking for something steady, something that paid decently and had benefits. I figured I'd work a couple of years, save up some money, maybe go back to school or get a job fixing trucks. But Denver had a way of pulling you in and chewing you up slowly. 1 year turned into 2, then 5, and before I knew it, I had been walking a beat in the city for almost a decade. This was in the mid-2010s, when the city started flipping from strange into full-on chaos. Some people blamed the housing market, others pointed fingers at fentanyl or the revolving door of the courts. Honestly, I think everything just broke all at once. New makeshift camps sprang up everywhere behind every fast food joint. Needles showed up in park sandboxes. The alleys reeked of urine and raw anger, and the people, they were boiling over, twitchy and angry, ready to take it out on someone. And usually, that someone was us. Don't get me wrong, there were still decent nights. My partner Fitz and I had the system down. He was big, slow-moving, but sharp as hell. I was quicker on my feet, better at talking to people, calming them down. We covered each other's blind spots. You learn that when the job starts to feel like war with paperwork. Most of our time was spent near 5 Points or Loto, patrolling liquor stores and subway stations. Sometimes, we'd chase fights out of a 7-Eleven on Blake Street. Then there were the nights that did not fit the usual mold. Nights that stayed with you long after the bruises healed. Nights that reminded you this job was not just dangerous, it was unpredictable. I remember one of those nights like a photograph. The sky was orange. Sirens were already wailing in the distance before our shift even started. Fitz was sipping gas station coffee while I thumbed through a pile of unpaid parking tickets, trying to just keep my eyes open. We just finished checking out a noise complaint near Alama, nothing major. Then the call came through, a 207 in progress. Robbery, with multiple suspects at Vine and 18th. Units respond. I looked at Fitz. He looked back at me. We tossed our coffee cups onto the floorboard and flipped on the lights. I silently prayed, please be nothing. Please just be some drunk with a knife or an idiot stealing beef jerky. But that night, I got no such luck. What we rolled up to was not a robbery in progress. It was a war zone. A busted up laundromat with shattered glass everywhere. The mini-mart next door looked like it had been flipped inside out. One clerk had a bleeding head wound. The other was yelling into a phone. And right in the middle of it all were 2 massive men, one holding a crowbar, the other gripping a butcher knife like he meant business. Fitz grabbed his radio as I drew my weapon. Just like that, the night got dark, fast. Fitz took the left flank while I moved right, weapon steady, heart pounding hard in my chest. The suspects were mid-scream, jabbing the air with the weapons like they were trying to hold the entire block hostage with nothing but fury and sweat. One wore a ski mask, the other had a bandana wrapped around his nose and mouth. Their eyes were wild, like trapped raccoons. "Denver PD," I yelled. "Drop the weapons, get on the ground now." The guy with the crowbar held his stance, feet wide, eyes locked on me. The one with the knife glanced toward the alley behind them. I could see the fight or flight gears turning in his head. People always think they will freeze in moments like that. They don't. They either run or they try to kill you. "Do it now," Fitz shouted to me. Then the knife guy bolted, sprinting toward the alley like his shoes were on fire. Fitz charged the other suspect and tackled him into a busted snack rack, metal clattering everywhere. I didn't think, I just ran. My boots pounded the pavement, and my lungs were gasping for air through the wildfire smoke and adrenaline. The alley was narrow, fenced in with rusty chain link, tagged with years of gang graffiti, and of course, the unmistakable stench of urine. He was fast, too fast, but I was closing the gap. 20 feet, 15, then 10. He glanced back, saw me gaining, and pushed harder. We turned a corner, then another. Trash bins, crates, and a ripped-out mattress soaked in filth cluttered the way. I shouted for him to stop, hand on my pistol, but he did not even look back. Then he slipped between two buildings, a tight squeeze. I followed without hesitation. And that is when the whole night went sideways. I cleared the gap and slammed to a stop. 3 of them. Not one. 3 of them now. The guy I had been chasing had come to a halt right in front of his friends. All of them were masked, one holding a baseball bat, the other gripping what looked like a length of iron pipe. They had not expected me. Panic flickered in their movements, but I did not have any time to analyze it. I raised my sidearm and opened my mouth to shoot. Too slow. The pipe slammed into my forearm before I could even pull the trigger. Pain exploded down my arm, white hot and electric. The gun flew from my hand and skidded away into the shadows. I staggered back, arms instinctively raised, the muscle memory of old bar fights kicking in. The man with the bat stepped forward and drove it hard into my ribs. I felt something crack immediately and dropped to my knees. They did not say a word, and honestly, that silence scared me more than the blows. No taunts, no threats, just grunts, the sound of impact, and bones breaking again and again. One kicked me in the stomach, another stomped down on my thigh. I curled up tight, covering my head. I figured that was it, that I was about to die, execution style, shot in the face with my own weapon, while a gang of street punks laughed over my broken body. But that shot never came. Eventually, they left. I have no idea how long I lay there, curled up like a wounded animal, blood soaking through my uniform. My left arm felt like it belonged to someone else, disconnected and useless. Every breath sent fire through my ribs. I rolled onto my side and stared up at the empty sky framed by rooftops. Somewhere nearby, a siren wailed, but I doubted it was for me. Then I heard footsteps. I forced myself to sit up, blinking through tears and blood. Fitz appeared around the corner, another officer behind him. Their guns were drawn, sweeping the area. They headed in the other direction. I croaked out a shaky warning, pointing with my good arm. 3 of them. One's got my gun. Fitz crouched beside me. His face was a mixture of horror and cold calculation. "You're gonna be okay," he said. "EMTs are on the way." Then another sound cut through the air. A gunshot, close, maybe a quarter mile away. One sharp crack, then 2 more. Everything froze. The other officer radioed it in, voice tight with panic. Fitz stood up, ready to sprint again, but paused just long enough to squeeze my shoulder. "Stay down," he said to me. Then they disappeared into the shadows. I lay there, shaking, every nerve screaming, trying not to throw up. Somewhere in the distance, more sirens started wailing, overlapping like a chorus. Cars tore through intersections, boots hit the pavement. It felt like the whole district was waking up. My beating had kicked a hornet's nest. The EMT arrived 5 minutes later, a young guy. He crouched beside me, muttering curses under his breath as he checked my vitals. Then he pulled out gauze and a splint. "Ribs are pretty busted," I told him, teeth chattering. "Arms gone to hell too. He nodded but said something I did not catch and just kept on working. The sirens echoed off the buildings like they were inside my skull. More shots fired somewhere in the distance. Then the EMT's radio crackled. Officer involved in shooting, Vine and 20th, one suspect down. I closed my eyes. The EMT paused, then grabbed his radio and relayed our location again. Behind us, more cops swarmed the alley, barking orders, boots thudding like thunder. I just sat there useless, just another bloody piece of meat while the world spun. Eventually, Fitz came back. Blood stained his sleeve, blood that was not his. His jaw clenched so tight, I thought it might crack. His eyes locked on mine, like he was trying to send a message without speaking. I did not ask. He did not offer. He knelt beside me and said, "He fired your weapon at us, got one round off but missed, and it wasn't at once. I put him down." I didn't feel relief, not right away. I did not feel anything. Just this hollow, numb coldness in my chest, like something inside of me had been scraped away. I was not angry. I was not proud. I was just done. The rest of the team rounded up the others, making 2 more arrests. Weapons were recovered, charges stacked up. Turns out, they were part of a local gang trying to flex by hitting corner stores and claiming territory. They did not expect cops to show up that fast, especially not 2 willing to sprint headfirst into hell without even hesitation. It took weeks to recover. Doctors patched my ribs, set my arm, told me I was lucky. I nodded, thanked them, then walked out, carrying a heavy bag of painkillers and a piece of paper that said, "Fit for duty." I stared at that paper for 2 days before tearing it in half. I never went back on patrol, took my retirement early, turned in the badge, the uniform, the trauma. A few months later, another officer got jumped 2 blocks from where I was hit. He was not as lucky as me. His name barely made the papers, just another casualty in a city that eats its own. People ask if I miss it, the action, the adrenaline, the sense of purpose. The truth is, I miss knowing who I was, but I do not miss looking over my shoulder every single day of my life. I don't miss the metallic taste of panic when a suspect twitches wrong. I don't miss hearing gunshots and wondering if one of my friends is dead. I am really late to the party here, but 3 weeks after I started, I was on my way to our off-site property control, just driving through a residential area to avoid the congestion and take a look at my new beat. I drive past a house with smoke pouring out from the eaves and 2 guys watching across the street. They pointed at it as I stopped and said, "I think there's a fire." Think was an understatement. The entire house was filled with smoke, windows were black with soot, and still no call. These 2 guys were just chatting away and not doing anything. I could not see fire, but it was July 10th and a sunny morning. No mistaking a house fire in broad daylight. So I call it in and try to gain access and yell for any survivors. Keep in mind, I have 0 fire training. I'm a cop, but I have half a brain enough to know that if there are any survivors in there, I will not be able to help any of them and will just be another body to yard out once fire does arrive. I get into the backyard by jumping over the hood of a minivan and sliding across like a Duke brother because there is so much junk everywhere. This takes a piece of the wooden fence and jams my radio key button open so everyone can hear me breathing, yelling for survivors, etc. I have no idea I've got an open mic at this time. I lay down on the deck and look through the sliding glass door, and there it is only about 4 inches up from the floor I can see. I continue to yell for survivors, but get no response. As soon as fire gets there, they make a slow entry because the front door has been barricaded. This is when I knew something was not right. Suspicions were confirmed when firefighters yarded out 4 children, a mother and a father. The father was the last one taken out and the only survivor. Everyone else, except for an infant, had been murdered with a kitchen knife. Doing CPR on a child that you can see is obviously dead is something that will haunt me forever. I never thought I could take someone's life until I had to try and help a child that was murdered by his father. I have never wanted to choke the life out of someone more. Talking about it helps, but it still hurts. I am not in law enforcement anymore, but I was for about 12 years in a large city. When I was a patrolman, I got a call about someone shooting off fireworks in a strip mall at 2 a.m. These were common calls, so we would usually go out to check the area and clear the call. I checked the parking lot and did not find anything, but noticed the lights were on at one of the strip mall businesses. I will not say what business it was, but it was owned by a pretty prominent local businessman. Anyways, I got out to check and found the front door unlocked, which was suspicious. We had a lot of burglaries in that area, so I asked dispatch to call a rep for the business. I was clearing the building and found the owner and several other people, all really prominent, in a back room where a poker table was set up. One of the guys was sitting down and had a pile of coats in his lap, which was really weird, and he was acting like he was in pain. I saw blood droplets under his chair and asked him what was wrong. He broke down and moved the coats, then revealed he had a gunshot wound in his thigh. Long story short, these guys had a high-stakes poker game every single week, and someone tried to rob it, and things went sideways. The dude robbing it shot this guy in the leg, which some citizen heard and called in a fireworks call. The guys involved in the game were not going to call the cops and were arranging to have a doctor come and treat him off the books. Gambling is illegal in the state I worked in, but we honestly would not have given a shit. We actually caught the guy that did it, but the DA would not prosecute because the victim/witnesses did not want to testify or be involved. The victim recovered fine. One of the guys who I interviewed told me that they were robbed of over $30,000. I had an elderly couple call in what they said sounded like a gunshot from the apartment below them. My uncle and his partner arrive on the scene and enter the apartment, weapons drawn. Standard protocol for a possible shooting in progress. Right in the entryway is what is left of a middle-aged Italian gentleman who apparently made the decision to end his life by shooting himself in the head with a .45 revolver. He is obviously dead. According to my uncle, his face was basically blown in half, nose missing, one eye gone, and the other hanging from what is left of the socket. My uncle's partner goes out to the squad car to radio for the cleanup crew, the guys that come up and scoop up the dead guy. My uncle stands at the door, making sure no one enters the apartment until they arrive. About 5 minutes pass by, and my uncle hears what sounds like something moving inside the apartment. He figures the guy probably has a cat or a dog. Your pet will eat you if you die, and they are hungry, by the way, so he heads back in to shoo it away so it does not further damage the guy's body. He opens the door, and the motherfucker with his face blown in half is standing there. My uncle reached for his sidearm and nearly shot the guy, thinking he was a zombie or something. The guy just collapses again. Not like fall into a slump sort of collapsed. I mean like fall straight back, hits with a thud sort of collapsed. My uncle, after regaining his composure, radios his partner to call for EMS, and then he proceeds to check the guy's pulse. Nothing. Nothing at all. There is no pulse. When EMS arrived, they said that there was no way the guy should have survived the initial shot, and that they would have assumed that he was dead too, based on the amount of damage that was caused to him. I mean, he had half of his fucking face blown off. My uncle says in his entire 20-year career, which included several shootouts and car chases, that he never felt more scared than when he opened up the door and saw that guy, who by all rights should have been dead, was just standing there like a fucking zombie, not moving, just staring.